welcome to the Tarot Talk Show, only on the Parrot Encounters Network. I'm your host, Rebecca Brown, and we've got a great show lined up for you tonight. The chat room is open in case you want to join in on the conversation with Tarot Tim, me, and our very special guest, Gina Thies. Let's see, so you know the other half of this tarot couple. Sorry, I had to think for a minute. This tarot couple is my co-host, Tarot Tim Martin. Hey, Tim.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing tonight?
Good, good. And our very special guest this evening is a tarot reader, teacher, relationship expert, and advisor, and the author of Tarot Coupling, Resources and Resolutions for Relationship Readings by Schiffer Publishing, available now at Amazon.com and Forster's local bookstore. Gina Thies is here, everybody. Hey, Gina.
Hello. Great to be here. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Tim. Great to really see you guys, and I'm so excited about doing this.
Yeah, I'm so glad you could come on the show. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have so much to talk about. But drinking game alert, my special guest won't know it, but anytime anyone says this word, take a sip from your caffeinated or otherwise Ace of Cups and drink until your former crushes start looking cute again. Tim, you and I had this discussion a couple days ago when we were just chatting, right? Something about your yearbook you were going through?
Yeah, I'm 46, so I've been out of school for a little bit, and I was in high school during the 80s, okay? Go back and look, even a few years later, at the people that you were just dying to go out with and stuff, and it's like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
I know, right? We've all been there. Yes. Well, the point was we weren't thinking. We were just overtaken by our adolescent hormones and goodness knows what all else. Yeah.
Obviously, love is blind. That's definitely true.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. So, Gina, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I have been involved with tarot for, I don't know. I had my first tarot reading sometimes back in the late 90s. I'm originally from New Orleans, so it was in New Orleans that I had a kind of like a, hey, go try this reader. You need to get a reading, and I don't believe in that stuff was kind of my attitude. And so I sat down, and this woman had these cards, and I was fascinated by the imagery. Of course, I have a background in art and fashion illustration, so art and the imagery, it was just captivating. And so I don't know, I kind of picked up on some things she said, but it was just kind of all a blur. But then as I look back and things started happening that she talked about, and I just thought, oh my God, I've got to go get another reading. So she owned a metaphysical bookstore, and the rest is history. As I've known her for all these years, she still reads for me. She no longer has her bookstore, but she became my mentor and told me in one of my tarot readings that one day I too would be a tarot reader. And I went, yeah, right. So the rest is history. I became just kind of dabbled in it. I am from a very clairvoyant family. I've always been around. My mother always talked about going to readers and water readers, and talking about, they're all very clairvoyant. My grandmother was, my brother is, but they never really pursued it in the manner that I have, of course. And so, I just started looking at the cards, and my first person I ever gave a reading to was my sister, who's still scared to get readings from me till this day. And I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more than just the little white book. That's how we all start off, And I wanted I'm the type of person when I dedicate my something, or when I'm kind of like a knowledge hog. So I wanted to get a formal understanding of tarot, and I began studying with Walden Van Amberstone at the tarot school in New York. So it was just my kind of getting into the internet and searching online. The internet was very, very new to me back then. And so once I started my study with them and decided that, this is something I want to devote my life to. There was an urgency to help people. Many of us feel that. And so what do? You go and get a job as a reader. So one of my first jobs, and at the time when I went to Reader Studio, we can talk about that later, I was one of the only, to my knowledge, readers there that was actually doing video chat room readings. And so I started working for Psychic Web, and I worked for them for about 3.5, 4 years, 14-hour days of reading. So, yeah, it was kind of like that baptism by fire sort of thing. Just
right.
kind of,
Yeah.
just jumped in, and so tarot has taken me around the world, literally. I've gone to just different places. I've been to Italy. I've gotten into the history and just my own. It's part of my own spiritual journey. I'm very interested in the occult and all types of esoteric topics. So tarot has been the constant. I feel like I talk a lot.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yes, it's the tarot talk. We're supposed to talk a lot about tarot, right? No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, it's been the constant. Tarot has gotten. There's so many different angles. There's so many different things that tarot will work with. That you just kind of find things, and you find kindred spirits that are also interested in the same thing. So not only do I have a lot of great friends that I've met through tarot and associates, it's just taken me to some really interesting places, and I am proud to call myself a professional tarot reader and author. So that's what it's gotten me, and I'm very proud of that.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's so exciting, and that's what I've found as well, is that tarot, just the people you meet and the places you go, I mean, it really is the fool's journey. Yeah, it really is when you get into it. It's pretty amazing. So let's talk tarot and relationships and relationship readings. I mean, the relationship reading really is the bread and butter of any tarot reader. It's up in the top 5, you've got your love and your money and your job and all these other topics. But yet at the same time, I really feel that the relationship reading is kind of specialized because you've got all these emotions and dynamics, and people just bring so much to the table when they want to know about their relationships. And
right.
So I guess my question for you is, because you've written Tarot Coupling, Resources and Resolutions for Relationship Readings, available now, I feel like this is kind of your calling. And so how did you kind of come around to getting into relationship readings as your specialty, as this calling?
Well, I really love this question, and I'm glad that you said it's my calling, because people keep telling me that it's just kind of a thing that's sticking. Well, it's interesting, Tim, because I have my 30th year class reunion coming up the end of the month. So I went to an all-girl Catholic high school. So there were always guys hanging around, though, from the other all-boys schools, and it's very interesting. So I've had a long journey of being interested, of course, in relationships. But in specific to tarot, it started working online, and day after day after day, just the people coming in, and the number one topic or top 5 was about relationships. And so as I wanted to know about tarot, I wanted to expand on how to actually give people relevant, practical information that would be useful in their journey in relationships. Because, I mean, there's relationship science. So it's big in psychology. I mean, there's a whole section, perspective dedicated just to relationships. But for myself, I've struggled in my relationships. I married 3 times. I'm on my 3rd marriage, 15 years, coming up at the end of the month. And so with that, I had to learn a lot about myself. And so in learning about yourself and learning about others, it just kind of grew into paying attention, noticing things. And again, I'm into just about, when I look at something, I get interested, I'll kind of just research it to death. I actually started, as my clients were, and I'm sure people that are listening and yourselves will have the experience of, they come to a reading, they want to know when he's going to leave, when she's going to leave, the wife or the husband or whatever, when they're going to call, see, who's my soulmate, over and over and over again. And I just kind of went, you know what? I've had enough of that. Granted, what good is it going to do if I tell you he's going to call Tuesday? Mm-hmm. What good is it going to do if you leave this relationship? You're going to carry the same habits and patterns over to the next relationship. Have you noticed a pattern of abuse? Have you noticed a pattern of you're attracted to a certain type? So I started reading, I think, Harville Hendrix' work and develop a course that I could actually teach to my clients about why you choose who you choose. And there's more to, let's focus on something else. Because, of course, as a reader, I want it to be more than just, and not to say this in a defensive manner, but more than just about the fortune-telling aspect. It's like, yeah, I've got the psychic part down, no problem. I can tell you, but then you're going to come back, well, he called, and then, so I want to offer something more, and I just don't want to pull it out of space. I want to have some really concrete, relevant information that I could give to you. So I just started working on the material and started aligning things with tarot, what we know about tarot as I learned and what tarot could actually do. So, this whole pattern emerged, and I went on to do more classes and just started kind of unbeknownst to me putting down the material for what has become tarot coupling. So I discovered attachment theory. One of the things that will come up if you ever watch anything or have people talk about relationships, they'll mention attachment theory, which a lot of people don't focus on in terms of therapy, but it is important information to have and to know. So I started looking at attachment theory and looked at the 4 types of attachment and said, there's 4 tarot suits. So I started doing some research into how that would work with tarot. How could I explain or know for myself, because it always begins for self and then branches out. How is this information important for what's going on when you're counseling or guiding people around relationships? So, from there, there's a once, and I would say it wasn't necessarily about diagnosing. It was about just the knowledge and being able to explain it without sounding like someone that has a degree, in psychotherapy, which I don't. But
making it approachable, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was information I started noticing as I just started testing the waters. People would really react, and it was really relevant and accurate for them. So I just said, this feels really comfortable, and I do a lot of relationship readings. And one of the other things I feel in tarot is we're not reading cards, we're reading people. So it's very important to know people and what our behaviors are, because the cards are there. It's a book of behaviors. So it just works out, and it is a passion, and I'm glad to kind of have that title of relationship expert, because I think there is. My expertise in tarot and relationships have kind of come together.
Yeah, it's so unique, and I really do feel like it's a calling. I feel that every reader can read on relationships, but at the same time, to really specialize in it is certainly a calling, and I think that's awesome. And speaking of behaviors and how everything kind of comes from the core, from the source, I actually forgot to lead off by asking you the one question I ask all of our guests, which is, in one word, Gina Thies, what lies at your core as a tarot reader?
What lies at my core? In one word,
One word. You can elaborate on this, of course, but yeah, in one word.
Mystic.
Ooh, I like it. That's a different one. We haven't had that one before in our 26 episodes. So yeah, go ahead and elaborate. That's awesome.
I recently have been kind of going through really and redesigning my website and trying to figure out, when people ask for bios, how to describe myself. What is it that I do? I had a client who I asked, give me your opinion on my website. What do I need to have? She said, well, you are your product. It's all about you. And she said, what people, and she's a person who has frequented readers, and she said, what set me apart was that I wasn't just someone who was, a reader. I was actually an advisor, which is how I came up with my website, Tarot Advisor. I was a spiritual advisor who actually uses tarot. And so it was more than just this is what this card means. It was more like, okay, let's get you on a path, or let's kind of set you off or set some boundaries for what you want to do in your life. It's not just like, yes, so this is this card and it means this and this and this. Okay, what do you do with that information? So, and then I have been interested, of course, I told you, in occult topics and esoteric topics and, everything that is kind of under that umbrella. And I just, would much more preferred than psychic to be called a mystic, because I think mystic says that there's a spiritual undercurrent, but that you understand something that's deeper, and those who come to you should understand that there's more. There's more. So that's kind of what it means to me.
I love that. Yeah, and I also feel like mystic it's a deep word, and I feel it encompasses teaching, and encompassing teaching, it encompasses service also. So I like it. I like that word. Awesome. Yeah. Very good. So what do you feel are some of because, okay, if a relationship is, unfortunately as readers, I feel like we see more unhealthy relationships than healthy ones. And it could very well be, though, that, anyone who's totally happy with everything isn't going to go see a reader, but I feel like we do see those unhealthy relationships. What are some cards you feel that are strong indicators of unhealthy relationships and unhealthy, I guess, behaviors that the person is going through?
All right, let's go for the obvious ones, and then I'm going to give you some not so obvious ones. Obviously, the Devil card would be a marker of, this is toxic relationship. It encompasses abuse. It encompasses violence. It encompasses just a lot of trickery, deception, but also, when someone's holding you back. So there's a lot of meanings, but I'm just kind of giving you my background as to why I would choose that card. One of the other cards is a temperance card, which is a not so obvious.
Yeah, it's interesting.
People love to get temperance. Oh my goodness, temperance. Well, temperance, if you kind of go into some of the iconology and some of the mythology about where those images come from, specifically if we're going to work with, let's just say, Rider-Waite. Well, it boils down to, for me, looking at this card, it's like the foot is in and out of water, so there's two worlds. Well, the goddess Iris, who's represented on the card by the Iris card, was an underworld messenger. So she had to go in the underworld and in and out of the underworld constantly. So for me, I started recognizing, and interestingly, when I'm working with a card, I'll spend a little while with a card. I mean, I'll sometimes 3 days to 3 months, depending on what's going on. And as I work with a card, I'll discover there's something relevant or pertinent in my life that's going on that this card is talking about. And so I began to realize when that shows up, you're going through some ups and downs. You may be going through a really, really tough time, but you're trying to balance a sense of normalcy with this tough time. So I've also seen temperance pop up for people that have depression or chemical imbalances. So that's one of them. Let's see. Wands cards. Wands. People love to get wands, too, because it's like, oh, this very passionate, hot,
right.
And I'm like, yeah, well, those wand people, that's an issue with commitment. They're very, it's like fire. It's an unstable energy, so they don't know whether to stay or go. So you will particularly find a wands issue, which is about, to me, having trouble committing or some issue with freedom as well. So you may notice if someone is, they've got a partner and the partner is looking outside of the relationship constantly or constantly wanting to go out, or they feel like you're nagging. It's like, well, the issue there is really about freedom. Let's see. If I have any other really big ones, the Knight of Cups. The Knight of Cups, when that card appears, I'll go, oh my gosh. That for me is also one that it has like everything that you could idealize in a partner, but there's something under there that's gonna really take you by surprise in not such a good way. And they also sometimes have commitment issues, but sometimes it's like you're with the dreamer, and nothing is going to truly manifest. It's a great card. Now people want a king, or and for me, court cards, by the way, which traditionally are gender related. I look at either one, could be anybody, male or female, could be a king or a queen of cups, So it's just about the personality and what you have decided that card represents as well. Because as readers, that's a lot of what we do. We associate what's going on with the card, and that kind of becomes attached. So the more letters you attach to something, you start forming words, and those words form the sentences. So that's what we're doing. Let's see. Sometimes the lovers is a really and I use reversals, but to me, I also I will use the meanings, because reversals, depending on how you look at them, but I don't have to use them. Actually, I can still get an opposed or challenge issue that's going on, whether my cards are reversed or not. But the lover sometimes.
Yeah, that's always been my feeling, is that I don't read reversals, because my feeling is that if the energy's blocked, or if it's, whatever, or I feel like the surrounding will show that. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, anyway.
Absolutely. So it's, that's a card that comes up when there's, triangulation in a relationship, or a third party interference. The Three of Cups as well. Any of those threes, it's like there's more than one person you're dealing with here. So it's like, typically people like to get those cards. It's like, let's look at it differently, So yeah. And there are others, and we can go on and on and on. I could talk a hole in everybody's head, because I do love to talk. So I know you have a lot to cover, so we'll leave it there.
No, I would agree with that. Yeah, and I feel like I'm going back to the wands when you were discussing an abundance of wands. I can agree with that. I think that that fire energy, it seeks freedom, and it needs something to kind of keep that fire burning. And I found that intense fire people, if they can't keep their own fire burning, they're going to take some of yours, just whatever to keep it going. But I think I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like in a relationship reading, in a strong abundance of any one thing, I think could be an indicator of an unhealthy relationship. Correct? An abundance of for example, maybe you're overthinking it, over planning it. It's more of a mental issue. I don't know. What do you think?
All in how you, as a reader, it's your method, it's your process, and how you have established what these things are going to mean to you. And that's why we constantly, I love to say perpetual students of tarot, because there's always so much to learn. And, I can learn from you guys, you can learn from me, and we go to conferences, and I'm always learning different methods and how other people look at things. And those are absolutely useful. But, in the same spirit, the flip side of that would be what's missing. I have all of this, but which suit is missing, or a major is missing? So that too can tell you that there's something either that they've got it covered, they don't need to look at that, or the thing that's missing is exactly what they need to look at. So you can, you can just look. The thing to do about readings is to look at, kind of flip it around if you have the time, either with a person, or I don't get to do a lot of in-person readings. Most of my, I'd say probably 80% of my clientele, I do readings by phone and email and text, or, smoke signals or whatever. I don't do a lot of face-to-face, so I don't, when I use Skype, and you can show the cards, but I don't have, usually have a situation where I can take the time and go look at this card and, give me some indication. I've got to kind of formulate things for them, or sometimes they're in a situation where they're on the phone and they're not able to really, they have to talk in code. So have to, and that just comes from my years of working how I worked. It gave me, it really was a skill developer. And so it gave me the capacity to be able to go and look at, what I've laid out and pick out things that they need to. I generally start off without questions. I know they have questions, and I want the questions, but I want that to be the last thing they go into, because I think, for me, I think clients are in anticipation. Most of the times, people come for a reading and they're in crisis. So I have lots of peers that won't read for people like that at all. I didn't know any better, so I was. It's like, yeah, I was molded that way. So I it's like, but to me, the crisis. I mean, we all do that. Nobody goes to a doctor when they're feeling good and say, most of the time it's like, I'm in fear of something, so I better have this checkup. Underlying that is, your motivation is that you don't want anything to be wrong. That's
why I feel we see more unhealthy relationships than healthy ones, because if you're healthy and you're happy, you might go to read.
And I go through the styles of the different attachment styles, and there are attachment styles that say there are people that actually decide to not be attached. They're single. They're not interested in a relationship. Few and far between.
I know this guy.
So it's like you're not going to see those, but we're social creatures, so we have relationships, and this can even apply to you carry those in your business relationships. We tend to gravitate towards what we know, what we're comfortable with. So you've got a lot of drama in your family life, you're going to have a lot of drama with your friends. I mean, it's just you mirror that situation. It even happens in social media. I see it in social media on Facebook. I see these camps and relationships and trying all these things going on, and it's just very, very interesting. It's like, so it doesn't change. I mean, we've kind of gotten molded. Now, as we evolve and we learn more about ourselves and we become conscious, then we can say, you know what, I'm very conscious that I attract, jerks. So I need to pay attention to that. I really need to pay attention to that. It's not going to make you not have that, because you can get in a relationship, everything can go really smooth and really well, and then you start the turbulence starts, and you're dealing with the turbulence, you end, and you think, this time I'm going to do different. But normally you don't. You go for it's a very subconscious thing, which is what attachment theory is about, that you think you're doing better, but you always, I'm going to say, for the majority of us, we always gravitate towards something that has to do with our parents. And that is either one. We either do the same or we do extreme opposite. Right. But still, it's like I'm trying to have a sense of, it's something you don't really, it's unconscious. So you don't know until all of a sudden it dawns on you. It's like, I'm dating my mother. Oh my God,
it's true. Yeah.
Or
right. That's what we're comfortable with. It feels familiar to us. It feels like home. Oh, I recognize this. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That makes perfect sense. I'm an orphan. Okay. And I was emancipated, have been on my own since I was 16, and I don't like relying on other people, and
Yes, absolutely.
I'm comfortable by myself.
It's like it would be really, really hard for you to, I mean, it's not impossible, because you can remember, we're still, up until we leave, we are on we're developing. So you could get into, 100 years old and go, I've got this special person in my life. And, so it can happen. It's just that you have to reach and be on your journey. But what will be difficult for you is when a person, and I'm just saying this, I'm sorry, I might be going into some, not to get personal, but it might be difficult for someone that wants to be very clingy. You wouldn't be able to handle that.
Oh, it drove I've had relationships, and my ex did not understand why I wasn't jealous. It's like, if you find someone better, go ahead. And they would try and make me jealous, and it didn't work, but they were extremely jealous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if I wake up at 3 a.m. and I feel like going outside or going to Walmart or whatever, I don't feel like I should have to explain that to someone.
Well, and the other thing, there's a protective thing there for you too, because underlying that could be a tiny bit of, you recognized, even from when you were young, there was some sense of abandonment is the word. And so you will do that. So it's like, I'm not going to be jealous because if you leave, whatever, I have your protection has been, I'm not going to really care about, the jealousy. The jealousy, believe it or not, is about protecting what we have. So if you feel like, I'm not going to be attached to that, I have no attachment, then it's the jealousy wouldn't affect you, but would affect the other person. And when we're in relationships, jealousy has actually biologically developed as, I got to protect the resources and protect the person before somebody else carries it off. So it's really one of those things. But it's interesting that you have that. That's very interesting.
Yeah. You were talking about the first reading you ever had. The first time I ever went to a psychic, and I was like 23. Mm-hmm. Didn't know anything about it. Grew up out in the sticks in Alabama, so that just wasn't there.
We got southern roots then.
Yeah, went and saw this lady, and the first thing she said is, "You have severe abandonment issues." But then she went on and said, "And I'm not talking about you being an orphan and your parents dying in this life. It goes back to another life where you were a Tibetan monk and your monastery was attacked and you were all killed. You were the last one to die, and you feel separated from Source because how could God let this happen when we've devoted ourselves to Him?"
Right. So, very interesting. So you are working with that. There's something there that you still need to work through. So that's very interesting. And it's interesting when we have our past life issues to deal with that we choose not necessarily have bad stuff happen to us, but we need the lesson, say for instance, of victimhood or abandonment. So you can work through that in very healthy ways and just say, okay, you know what, I'm done with that. And you can speak that to universe. Oh, I'm done with that. I've got it. But not just to get rid of it, but to truly go, you know what? I really see. I really understand. And jealousy might be one of those things that you have worked through. And so it comes back and you're just kind of the mirror for that other person. Mm-hmm. Right. So, yeah, it's very cool. Very interesting.
Yeah, she went on to tell me that, how you have the same circle in many lifetimes, but you change roles?
Yeah.
She said, well, your parents and you were so comfortable that you've had multiple lifetimes in the same role. So they gave you a good base in this life and then left because you need to learn how to be yourself and not
maybe to be alone. Maybe that's part of your karmic, the stuff that you're burning and paying off now is because there's times when in lifetimes we're going to be alone. There's times when we need to learn what it's like to be part of a couple. And so maybe, this time around you're working through being alone, being yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I fought it too from now too. When I was young, I wanted that relationship thing, but and no matter good or bad, whatever, as long as it was a relationship.
Yeah. So traveling with the same soul group. There's a terminology, we know soul mate, but there's soul group. So what those are the, it's like teacher-student relationships, and you decide to exchange roles. And they say, this time you be the mom, because you got to learn about motherhood, and I'll be the dad, or I'll be, so, it's all about planning out those lessons. So that's very, very interesting. But in terms of, we could say that, but then we say, okay, so I've got, I was born, my family's this, and I had this horrible thing going on in my life. Why would that happen? And again, it's not about choosing what the other person does. It's about the lesson. But on the flip side of that, I am really, my pet peeve, I guess, is like abusive relationships, women that have been through, specifically women, but anybody that has gone through any sort of abuse. I'm not afraid to work on those things, and just because of my own experiences, I can gravitate or I can pull them out. But you can't, that saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. In terms of working with people in very, especially domestic violence situations, you have to tread carefully, and I advise really have them work with a counselor or advisor. But in terms of if they're seeking advice through a reading, one of the reasons why I wrote Tarot Coupling and I talk about relationship stuff all the time is because I think as readers or advisors or whatever we call ourselves, there is there's a science, there's research, there's a school of psychology, different many perspectives that have done the work and said, this is how you handle stuff. So I think it's pertinent to have an idea of counseling, to do, to understand what that would be like. If you're doing therapeutic readings, we hear that a lot. Understand, what the people that are coming to you need to know what that is. I mean, we, talking shop here, we know what that would mean, but many people don't. Are you, you kind of have to look at what tarot has the reputation for. And so I think we have a big job ahead of us changing the perceptions, changing the stereotype. And I think it's happened. I think we've done a lot of work. People are talking about tarot much, much different than they were even, in 1999. So that's really, really good. So we have that to educate our clients. But so working with that, you have to be really, really careful. I had a reading I did one time, and I was online talking just as we are now, but I was actually typing. And a person comes in, and they just said to me simply, I'd like to look at my marriage. And so I'm also empathic. So I'm typing, and I'm saying to this, it just hit me, and I see like police uniform, I see sirens, and then all of a sudden my wrist starts burning. It was like on fire, and I went, okay, I couldn't move further than, what's wrong with your wrist? That's exactly what I typed. That's all I typed. Then the person said, OMG. I said, what's going on? And as it turns out, to make a long story short, it was a domestic violence situation, and her husband had hogtied her with telephone wire by the wrist. So the police, got involved and, all of this stuff. And so, her question was simply, again, the sense of normalcy, what's going to happen, where to go, what to do. So, it's hard to say. And at the time, even, in the cards, it will paint the picture. It's like, okay, it's better to just bow out of this relationship, but it's really hard to tell a person to do that.
Right.
There's many, many factors. I mean, she was by far not emotionally done with this relationship. And so, or she, and then she, she wasn't physically or financially done with the relationship. So, those are the type of people, they may come back again and again just to kind of get their life on a path of normalcy, as I call it. But, it's like, it scared me to go just, and I was like, I don't think this is really somebody hogtied you and you're just wondering where what's it going to be. I mean, that's, and I've of course educated myself more about cycles of abuse and stuff like that. But you never know when a person comes to you for a reading what you're going to walk in with, what they're going to walk in with. And so it's best to have resources and no resources. And that's one of the reasons Tarot Coupling is a resource. I wanted it to be just not another book about this is what the cards mean. I wanted it to be, okay, let's, a resource as what understanding as to what's going on. So, it's like, I know it's very important to know what cards mean, but there's a lot of information, and I wanted to just make specialize in the relationship arena because that's what we deal with. I mean, we do deal with relationships, whether eventually they may, you ever had people think they're not going to ask about a relationship, but the reading ends up a relationship. So
well, that's what the cards are targeting. That's what's registering. And it's obvious that, yes, this is about.
I mean, they don't want to pay attention. They'll go all the way around it, So it eventually comes down. So there's so much more to say about what happens in a relationship, and couple therapy and that sort of thing. But I specifically just dealt with recognizing the most important thing, which is about who we get with, why we choose who we get with, and getting to know who we are and who these people are.
What we can do about with it, how we can move forward. Go ahead, Tim. Do you want to say something?
I had a client, and it's so interesting when because I pull 4 cards to start with,
Mm-hmm.
and that's for every reading. That's just what I do to get a brief view. It's the querent, mind, body, and spirit. Okay. First card was the Lovers, so obviously she's all about a relationship. Then it was the Devil, the Tower, and the 5 of Wands.
Nice.
It's like, oh, honey, this is, you're in it for all the wrong reasons, for the jealousy, for the, you're mired down in things that aren't helping your higher self. And,
right.
And then the cards, because the cards are going to tell me what they're going to tell me, said, we're done with this. We're going to talk about she needs to go to school and she needs to do this and whatever and whatever. So we had a whole, another 50 minutes about everything else. All this wonderful stuff and opportunities and everything. And then at the end I said, did you have any specific questions? Is the relationship going to work out?
I know.
It's like,
I know. Well, because, there's a lot of reasons why I could say that is, but again, it goes back to my point. At the end of the day, that is still the burning question. They can go around it. I've had people who know better, who we think, are on that higher path. Still happens. A very happily married person can have someone flirt with them and it throws their whole, their whole thing off. So there's the curiosity and there's the woulda, coulda, shoulda. There's the, I ran across my ex and woulda, coulda, shoulda. So all of these things. So it is the should, and it's because at the core of ourselves, we are separated. Going back to that soul group. I mean, it's like we're separated from a part of ourselves. And so we're trying to put that back. We're trying to get back to a state of peace and happiness. And that is why relationships feel good. When we meet somebody or there's this cute, oh my God, he's so cute. And, I'm going on a date. And, we get the whole chemical reaction. But spiritually, it's about we're getting close to that sense of elation and that sense of wholeness, that sense of happiness that we have been detached from. And so we look for that. And I think that is at the core of understanding this is why this is going on.
Well, then we're looking for wholeness in others when I feel it's important. Yeah, it always comes down to the self. And, okay, let's say you're jealous. Well, it's important to understand within the self, well, where's that coming from? Because the other person's going to do whatever they're going to do. But yeah, exploring the self and why am I jealous? Why does this bother me? What is really at the core of that jealousy? What do I believe about myself?
Yes. Well, science will tell you that the jealousy comes from many, way back, millions of years ago, when before we had the idea of marriage and love, we basically chose a mate, and it was anything go. There were no rules, and so basically for survival, you got with someone and you stayed with that person because it was easier to survive with more than one person than alone. And then for women, you have a male. And then you breed. And so it's like now you have children. So then it's like, who's going to take care of the children? That's kind of the age-old thing. And so it was about resources. So it was about partnerships. And it's like, okay, if you go off to another plan, I'm not going to survive. So that jealousy is an old, oh, no, you don't. It's kind of ringing that bell like an alert. It's an alarm going off like, oh, no, you don't. But on the other side of that, jealousy also relates to fear.
Right.
You're afraid, or it's also anger, but you don't really know how to express the anger. So there's a lot of little components there. It's actually beneficial. I mean, when you are jealous, you do need to examine yourself. It's like, what's going on here? Or you need to pay attention because maybe there is something going on here, and you're being told there's something on, but you're trying to rationalize it away. So you do stop, look, and listen, like, what's going on?
The emotions are very powerful. They can tell us a lot. Yeah, a lot.
Yes.
Now, everybody talks about really bad relationships. What I also get a lot, though, and I blame it on the way society really is now. because all the guys want to be James Bond and go with all the girls, and all the girls, you know, it's all the soaps and the Harlequin romances, and they'll get a good relationship, a good partner that's there for them and whatever, and it's not exciting enough. They get bored and want more, which is why they cheat and do all these really stupid things and ruin something good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, you know, it's just, you know, things will dictate to us who we should be, who we are, how it should happen. Nobody likes to imagine the not so nice sides of relationships. It's easier to paint a picture of how wonderful the romance can be, the falling in love. We're all junkies for that rush that comes with the sense of getting that person, falling in love, going out. You know, if I kind of go, if people recognize in terms of marriage, you know, marriage became about protecting assets. You know, it got established. You have all these other things that come on. So it's like, yeah, it's about protecting assets. So it doesn't matter in terms of, you know, the big argument now about, you know, same-sex marriage and everything. I'm like, no, you know what, legally, let's do that because it's about protecting assets. When you work hard, you've established, you know, let's do that because that's what it's about. Now, the love part, you know, in tarot coupling, I talk about the stages of relationships. And so you have the stage where it's the giddy infatuation, the building up. So your relationship goes through, and we love that honeymoon phase. The real work to me in relationship of any sort begins at that first time you go, you know what, it's getting on my nerves with that trash in there. You go, I'm going to pick a fight because there's stuff all over, and I don't want their stuff all over. That's where it begins. You are now at a phase where you have to do the work, and it is definitely work because you have to look at that. Those are old messages. That's coming from somewhere, but you don't want to look at your mess that's over there too, because you know, no, their mess is over there, and they're just pissing me off. And so, you know, we get into these little fights about things, and we don't know at the behind that are voices in our heads telling us, you didn't clean your room. You know?
Well, yeah, and deep subconscious.
No, yeah. Person would wear that going out. Well, geez, Mom, you know, so you're
those deep subconscious messages, the things we believe about ourselves that are triggered by others. And yeah, we'll pick a fight because it's easier to pick a fight, get that person going, so we don't have to look at our own stuff, you know, because then it becomes about them. Yeah. It's interesting.
Avoidance of, gosh, I've got to do some work on myself. But, you know, one of the other things that I came across reading stuff, and I want to say it was Cynthia Giles, but it went something like, you know, people would rather go to a reader than go to a therapist because it's so much more like, okay, this is the, you know, the lesser of two evils, and I won't have to be labeled, or I won't have to, you know, kind of my own thing. I think people come to readers because it's easier to, you know, not have to, you know, you can kind of put less into it, I guess, but I think we can get a lot of work done more than, you know, visiting therapists that want you to do some kind of like, you know, this and that. I mean, I kind of like, if you come to me, I'm going to try to get to the heart. I want to make it worth your time and my time. And so let's do the work, or I'm going to give you pointers. Now, I also recognize some people are not ready to do the work.
Right, absolutely. And it's hard work. The therapeutic process is very hard work. Well, and even in a tarot reading, though, doing the work within the reading is hard.
Yes. And so, and some people are also not ready to look at aspects of relationships. I mean, I generally, if I have a person that come and I go, okay, here's a situation where there's you know, this obvious infidelity, but they may not be ready to look at that. So I'll just kind of have them walk into it by saying, you know, there's this interference. And sometimes they go, oh, it's this whole other thing. And I go, okay, you know, they're not ready, so I'll move on. But, you know, over either several readings or a little bit later, they'll come to, do you think they're cheating? Or, the next couple of readings, they'll come back and say, I want to look at this. And it's like, okay,
Right.
the time, they're going off another tangent. I'm like, okay, they're not ready to deal with that because that's a thing. So there are many, many things I would say for people who do readings and dealing with relationships, relationship aspect, relationship readings. You just, you have to have your process and your method and just kind of, look at what people are asking. That's the other thing. What's the real question they're asking? So sometimes are they going to call is not really about are they going to call. It's really about I don't want to be alone. So
right, exactly.
You've got to at some point in your reading. I mean, I'm very much into we are a specialized group and we can do there's no standard. But the important point is to help people. So how you get there, in any ethical way, that's important. But, at some time I do go, okay, I'll do that whole, psychic reading. But then it's like, okay, so the work is about you need to look at this. So, I will say that to him point blank. And it's like, maybe not now. You may not want to deal with that now. Just want to write that down and file it away. Put it in a parking lot. We'll go to that later. And then continue on because I want to kind of have people thinking about something.
No, I agree. I think just by putting it out there, whether or not they're ready to work through it or hear it, I think just by putting it out there, it gets the mind working, something to mull over. So, Gina, what's one of the biggest relationship killing things that you see people do, and how does that register in a tarot reading, like when you read the cards?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. In terms of an issue that's a relationship killer, I would say it has to be infidelity. So cheating is huge. That's one of the biggest thing. Or also being the other person in, it's a love triangle, but just dealing with hanging on, especially when people get with people that are in other relationships or marriages, and they're kind of going, when are they going to leave? That's huge. I think people also have a difficult time of knowing to get out of, a bad relationship, or when they know it's not going anywhere. One of the other things that I see is someone who just will chase. They'll chase no matter what you say. They don't want to look at this is what you're chasing. It's just about the chase. Gosh, man, I actually did a list of kind of the most important things that come up in relationship readings in the book. In terms of connecting to readings, a lot of people do psychic spying. And so what I mean by that, they come to you. What's going on in the other relationship, and also being very, very careful of doing couple readings, especially when somebody says, "Oh, I'm going to bring my significant other, and we're going to do this reading." That happens to me a lot at parties, and so you're sitting there, and they want to see what's going to come out, and you have to be very, very careful about giving people ammunition to take back, and they'll say, "Well, the psychic said." You're doing this. So you have to be careful in how you word information that comes out of your mouth. Most of the time, people want an easy fix. They want I see a lot of people do it. Like, okay, so what's the love spell to win this person back or get this person or, fix my life? I'm like, if you really want me to fix your life, it's work. So, so that is, in terms of difficult and challenging things that happen, that would be, the top of the line that I've experienced. There are many, many others, of course, but just dealing with that infidelity, it's so hard. Or having an unrequited love, that's also very difficult. So that's just about, I love this person, I can't tell them, or they're ignoring me, and how do I do that with it? So those things can be very difficult too, to kind of go, oh, okay. What do you want me to do? Cards saying, But those are some of the challenging things.
I find that especially dealing with the relationships, um, trust is the biggest thing that you need. It's as important as the love, because no matter how much you love them, if you don't trust them, because you were the third person or they were the third person, so even though they're doing nothing wrong, in some people's minds, they're going to cheat on me because I got them unfairly because I was cheating with them. And there's just no really easy way to come back from that.
Well, again, that's why you would go and look at, why do you attract the types of people you attract? So look at whatever primary relationship has been going on and that's prevalent in your life from way back when, and what messages did you get about cheating or having other people. I mean, sometimes, I've seen it where people have had either, unbeknownst to them, their parents were dealing with infidelity, but they never knew. But it's transferred over some sort of way, or for a while I would say in some parts of the world, even still now. I mean, having someone on the side is acceptable to relationships. When you look at chivalry and the whole romance thing and the knights. I mean, the knights, because these are arranged marriages. And so to have someone on the side or have someone paying attention to you, that was a thing where you did it with honor, but it was, it was a thing that happened. And I mean, in some parts of the world, you had your wife, but you had your concubine. So, these are things that we continue to carry. We carry it down through our DNA, I think, almost. And so monogamy is really, I think, something that just came out of necessity. And I think it's really, really hard because when you look at how, let's just say, I won't say marriage, I'll say committed relationships. Being committed to just one person is very, very, very difficult. I'm sorry, it is. I can say that having been married for 15 years, it's very difficult because we are our own individuals. We come into partnerships 100 and 100, not 50-50. And so to lose parts of yourself, a lot of times what I've seen happen too is people get in a relationship and it's never about, they lose who they are. So they're encompassed by the partner, and it's all about I'm Mrs. or Mr. So-and-so.
Well, it's because they're seeking wholeness in the other person.
Well, it's also because, unfortunately, again, forgive me because I really am conscious about this sort of thing, but women are very conditioned to give up themselves or give up parts of their lives, to get married and have a family and be somebody's wife, and somebody's going to take care of them. I mean, that's a conditioning that we have. And so, unfortunately, we are also conditioned to be nice and have good behaviors, and you don't get married, and, you just sit down, and yes, he's taking out his mistress, but, you just grin and bear it. And, so a lot of these things are just like accepted in a way, but I think infidelity has taken on so many different things now. I mean, it's like, okay, they're gonna cheat, so let's just go ahead and do the polyamory thing, where it's like, let's just make it until, you're just like, let's not deal with that, let's just do this. We're not really cheating, but but then they have their own set of issues. So, it's always there. And again, it's about, I think it's trust, but it's also faith. You have to have faith too. That plays a big part of it in many ways. I mean, literally religion plays a huge part in why we stay in very bad and toxic relationships. And I've seen it, I'm not getting a divorce because this is my religion and I'm this. And so it's like, okay, all right. But what people don't realize, again, it's like you are passing on something. We keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And one of the other things is that that I'd like to do at some point is do a relationship class, but do relationship training because often people go to premarital counseling. A lot of times they'll go to the church and have the counseling, but I think I want to develop a class that deals with, tarot and really working with couples to say, okay, before you make that big step, let's think about these things. So that's kind of in the back of my mind. But I think people do need relationship training. And I think more married couples, that have longevity, or committed partners that have longevity in their relationship, should teach others, what it takes. Occasionally you'll see a couple celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary, and how do you stay for long, and they'll talk about things that you need to do. But I think part of what we do in relationships is we become very comfortable. And when you become very comfortable, accustomed to a lifestyle, accustomed to the person, and want to start over, then you will tolerate things that you shouldn't tolerate. You'll accept things that you shouldn't accept. So those are things that you have to look at. So, I definitely am thinking about doing that. So I'll keep you guys posted on when I get to that.
No, I think that's great.
I tell people all the time when they're contemplating taking that next step with it,
Mm-hmm.
a relationship does not complete you. It should complement you. Because
Right.
you're the whole package. So a relationship is really condiments. It adds flavor and spice, and it should make it enhanced. If it's not enhancing you, walk away.
And that's what I say. 100% and 100%, not 50-50. Did you by chance, Tim, read the introduction in tarot coupling?
I have not.
Okay, I'll just tell you what it says. It says,
Okay.
love, in my introduction, I say, love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind. Therefore is winged Cupid painted blind. And that is from William Shakespeare in Midsummer Night's Dream that he wrote. And so he said something earlier about love being blind. That's kind of what I started out with. Like, that is what this is about. We're doing stuff in our minds. And so it's not through our eyes that we are choosing. I mean, we do want, and they've done tons of research about how you choose someone and the looks part, and that's about, you're choosing the top of the pool gene. But it is all a very mental, subconscious process, and that's what I really got into. So love is blind in the sense that you can look past a person's faults and start accommodating because of you feeding your own needs. So
absolutely. Yeah, you get into the cups. Well, and tying tarot to it, you get into the cups subconsciousness and the emotion and the need and all of this. And the swords is really the antidote to that, understanding the mental process behind it, pushing it to the surface, making it conscious. Yeah.
Yes.
It's very important.
Yes, very, very important. So, I think it's just so important to have a frame of reference when trying to explain certain behaviors to people. A lot of times, one of the things about the book and my method in here is, again, not for telling a person, well, you're just anxious, preoccupied, because what does that mean? But exactly. It's more like you're going to go through the process, and sometimes it's like you may have a difficulty explaining or framing exactly what's going on, and they keep saying, well, he's really cold. Last week he was hot, and now he's, or he or she's really cold. And so there's a reason for that. There's a push and pull in relationships, and but what you're looking for with this material is about patterns. And so it's not something that you can. You can once you understand the system, once you understand what's going on, and you have it kind of, it's like riding a bicycle. Once you learn all the steps, then you will be able to see it. But when you're at a party, you're not going to be able to immediately go, well, this is it. You have to kind of spend some time getting it down, and then you'll be able to understand, a lot more than you would prior to. So, I spent a lot of time doing trial and error and saying things to people. I would just throw out something. Hey, is it this going on? Oh my God, that's interesting. Yeah. So really, I went through just working with the court cards, because I felt like the court cards were the most difficult. For me, I was very fascinated with the court cards, but in getting readings from other readers, and I kind of noticed myself doing it at first in the early part of my career. But you just kind of go, oh yeah, oh King of Cups, yeah, good. So that is, it's like, okay, so what is that? Well, then that's an aspect of your personality. What is, I don't know if I may just have a very skewed and limited experience, but can you agree with that? I mean, it's like
I agree with it. So if I were to do, for example, like a reading on my relationship, and let's say that I'm reading on like, okay, what can, I bring to this relationship? What can I do? And yeah, the Queen of Cups shows up. Okay, well, depending on what's there, no, I get what you're saying. It could be like either maybe more compassionate, maybe more nurturing is needed, or maybe it's just that I need to explore those subconscious waters of that queen. Like why is this triggering my own feelings of insecurity or jealousy or anxiety, abandonment, whatever, No, I get it. It's absolutely those different aspects of personality. I would think, like, for example, the swords court cards, maybe they're always preoccupied, I think anyway, with like control and like those, details. So no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's different.
That's very, that's very applicable and true. My thing is that you don't have a really, they can throw out that it could be all of those things, but you're kind of left sitting, but which one, or I don't identify with that queen, or you get some kind of vague dealing with it. So, I think a lot of times, and it's like, pages are very difficult because it's like, well, to say this, but, and that may be dealing with a younger person, but what else does it say? So, there's these ranks, the king, queen, those ranks mean something. They all have been assigned meanings, but when you get a whole slew of them in a spread and you're like, who's what and where? I wanted to, in specific to relationship readings, give you what those attachment styles were. So for me, for instance, when there's a swords person, swords I've equated to what's called the dismissive avoidant. And so for me, based on what's going on with swords, I think swords people tend to be a little less, they're not really, they're very distant. And they very much will not go there emotionally. They'll just kind of rationalize emotions. You can't ask them to, like, you can ask a cups person to feel a sunny day. You can't ask a sword person to feel a sunny day.
Sure.
I think it feels like, they've got to kind of go there. So, but dismissive avoidants tend to have a lot of kind of, they don't want to be cramped at all. They don't want to, kind of, the mushy, gooey side of it is just like, oh, no, I don't have time for that. And just kind of go over on your own side of the room or bed and stay there until I'm ready. And I think I'm ready and have processed all of the things I have to process. Then we can come together. So, Well,
I'm chuckling because I'm just thinking that if you have a dismissive, avoidant person and then an anxiously attached person, like this, there's just no way, like this stuff is going to work. I don't know if like anxiously attached is one of your terms in your book, but I was thinking of that just through my own therapeutic process that I'm going through. Like I'm learning, I'm anxiously attached. Like that's how I am. And so, I'm just chuckling because, you get into your stuff, and you start to pull back the camera and see how the big picture works and everything. Yeah,
you do, and it's like certain types will just kind of gravitate towards certain types, and you might think, oh, I would never, I'm not going to do that, but you do. I mean, even if you think, okay, this time it'll be different. When you get out into what I call the meat market or the dating scene, there's some old patterns that come back. There's some old stuff that comes back. And You walk into a place, and I mean, now it's online dating, which I think is still the same. It doesn't really matter. You think you're reading a profile and you're getting specifics. I guarantee you, people are doing the same thing as if they were walking into a bar and walking up to someone. And I'd be interested. Well, you know, in my work, I do a lot of online dating. People that are doing that, so I think it works the same way. But you know, there at the end of the day with relationships, there are some compromises that you have to have for yourself and for your partner. It's just how it is. I mean, we're humans and we need to negotiate. So negotiations are always going to be at the end of the day, and you have to keep the lines of communication open no matter what. So the hardest thing is flipping that mirror around and going, oh my gosh, that is all me and where it comes from. And I tell you, kind of looking at where it all comes from can be very, very, I don't know, for me, relieving, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, okay, you know, it's almost like I feel like I'm okay, but I see what's going on and why I do these things, you know, why this is. So, you know, it's like, it's pitiful sometimes when I look at my own stuff and go, oh my gosh. Then I'm also very grateful that I've done the work and I can look back and go, or I understand where all that stuff comes from. When things come, go, oh, that's what that is. And I just kind of shake my head and feel like, I can't believe I came from that. But no, it's not always a pleasant thing. But here's the other thing. It's not about trauma. You know, it's not all necessarily about trauma. I mean, my mother is a very, she's got this perfectionist. She's a Virgo, so she's, you know, perfectionist, and she wanted the best for everybody. And, so she thinks she's doing well by saying it has to be perfect. And it's not it's not some traumatic abuse, but it's like, now I look at my partner and I go, you've got to be perfect. You know, so but in a sense, it's like, yes, it's a very good thing because you want to, dot your I's, cross your T's, and produce the best that you can. But on the flip side, that could be very, very hindering in a lot of sense, because it's like, I just want to give up. I'm never going to be perfect enough,
Patience, right? Yeah, and if you're not perfect, well, what does that say about you then? Like if I'm not perfect, what do I then believe about myself? Right. Yeah.
Well, one of the classic ones is, a parent being too smothering. It's like you can't go here, you can't do. I don't want, stifling a child, and so they think on their side they're not doing anything that's criminal or abusive, but they think they're protecting, and they know better, and so that's what they're trying to do, but it doesn't come across that way to the child. So if you look at the Erik Erikson's stage of development, as you grow up, you have these different stages, right? That you get to learn autonomy, and you get to learn independence, and you get to learn trust, and you get to learn all these things at a certain time. And if that in that period, if you're not getting the healthiest side of that, then that's where your blocks occur. And so you've got to work through that, and you can learn to work through them as you go on and progress through ages. So, it's funny because I look at my own son, he's 18 now, and he's getting to the point where it's like, okay, he's at that age where it's like he's becoming interested, And so it's like, okay, interested in dating, and let's see. And so it's like, but for me, my mom would have said, oh, that person's no good. It's like, it's never about, oh, well, what do I need to, oh, no, that one, no. Okay. So just, that wasn't really, so I think as parents, we need to be conscious of our own stuff. Then we can pass it on to our children and step models, because that's exactly what they're getting. They're getting an unconscious model.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel so bad for people that want to date me because I'm a Gemini, okay? I come on with the wands and get it all hot and bothered and excited, and then I turn into a sword mid-thing, and it's like, get off me. What? My whole family's like that, though. I've always said I'm so glad I was born into this family and not married into it, because all of them have been married 5 or 6 times.
Wow. So that's a lot. What you're saying is, that's huge.
I understand that.
That's a simple statement, and recognizing you're going, okay, so let me tell you something. When you get involved with me, here's how it's going to go. But you also have to know that person might be accustomed to that and they don't like it, but they can't help it because that is how things are. So they may give you trouble because they know the cold is coming at any moment. They know it's coming. So, they're doing all these things, and you're going, oh my God, I can't believe it. And they're going, oh, so so what you have to do is go, what we're doing here is this push and pull. I mean, you really just say, just pay attention. And I know you think I'm going to abandon you, but I'm just going out of town. I'll be back. So you've got to sometimes talk them through it. I mean, but then you have to take that. Okay, the attachment is just one aspect of it, because then you have other things that have entered the picture as people go on. So you've got, people could be borderline, or they're depressed, or they've got some other kind of issues that, you've got to kind of put it all together. So this is just one aspect of just giving people a baseline. It's kind of like you go in for a mammogram and they're like, you have to have your baseline point. So it's like you get a baseline and look at their patterns. I mean, it's really to help, once you understand it, I recommend people doing it for themselves and looking at stuff, and then they can work with clients. Or either way, I mean, I try to put it in terms where as if I had to understand it, and sometimes I have to make things really difficult before I understand it. But
I totally agree, is to really explore it for yourself if you're going to talk about it or even advise it, Like, I feel very comfortable now, asking people, well, have you been to therapy? Is this something that you've thought about? Are you exploring the self and these dynamics? Because I've been there, like I'm still going through it. Yeah, and I absolutely agree. It's good as a reader to explore what you're advising, what you're talking about for yourself, and to understand your own stuff. Yeah, and your own dynamics.
Yes.
Oh, that
I think
you briefly.
Oh, go
you
ahead.
had mentioned the any coupling gay marriage and stuff. That was, my friend said I was awful because they passed gay marriage in Delaware, and I said, oh my God, how am I going to get rid of people now that we can't get married?
Oh, you are funny.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's right. See, they don't know what you ask for. What do they say? Be careful what you wish for. They keep saying that. Nobody does. They don't think about that. Yes, exactly. So, but again, yes, a reason to get rid of somebody. Yeah, that's what it's for. So, but it makes it unpleasant after you've had divorces and breakups. They're just not pleasant for anybody. And even if you end up being very cordial and friendly, it's still very hard. Even if you decide, we can't do this, we both agree this is not going to work, and it's not some kind of critical devastation in the relationship. They're not easy to get. It's not easily to unemotionally attach or get emotionally unattached to anything, even jobs. I mean, have you tried you worked at a job for, a few years, and you want to move on, you're getting a better job, but you're kind of like, it's that still a sense of ending. And I think, have you guys had people come to you and they're talking about getting closure in a breakup? They're talking about closure. I always say, no, you just wanted to be the one to break up with them. That's No, but seriously, closure, how to end things and what to think about. People need to understand it's a process of healing. There's nothing you can do but let it heal. Time will heal. You don't need closure. You need to, and I also sometimes do assignments like, look at all the reasons you wouldn't have been with that person. What's the pros and cons? So think about those, and you might have a bigger list of cons than anything else. So the closure part, the letting go, will he come back? That is just that phase of, I want my life back. It's like you're in panic mode. I want my life back. Are they coming back? Are they coming back? Are they coming back?
Well, exploring that. Furthermore, exploring that, taking that time to really explore why that's pulling this out of you. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of closure, we are coming up on time here.
Hey, wow.
Gina, what's next for you?
Oh, let's see. What is next? Well, I will be speaking at BATS. I've got my little BATS cup here. I'm going to the San Francisco Bay Area Tarot Symposium that is at the end of August. And so I'm going to be out there with Thalassa and the crew. I'm going to be presenting. And so from there, let's see, what else happens? TarotCon in October will come to Dallas, where I am. So I'll be involved in that, participating in some manner. I'm not quite sure yet. And then I am in the process of painting my first deck. I am doing a deck that I've gotten really interested in the culture of the Mamluks and the Moors, who actually had a lot to do with our playing cards, and which eventually became part of tarot. So I just got really fascinated with that and started a few paintings. I haven't posted anywhere yet, so I am putting together a proposal for that. There's actually 2 decks. There's another deck that I have partnered with Dan Pelletier to work on. And, I've gotten a few people saying start working on the next book, which there's 2. And so there's all these different things. And, of course, Katrina Wynn and I do co-host Oracle Soup. So we have a host of people that we've, like really great people that we've interviewed, and we're just trying to get our iTunes situation going to get that up so it can be exposed to more people. But it's really, really fun. And of course, the Tarot School Tarot Tips newsletter, I work with Walden Luthan and put that together for them every month. And so I would love if people are interested in tarot coupling, you can just go to my website, which is tarotadvisor.com and tarotcoupling.com to order. And, I do really, really in-depth readings and consultations. Let's see, just, I'm kind of around the internet, participating when and where I can. I feel like, I'm burning I'm too old to be burning the candle at both ends, but then again, I stay really, really busy. I love to travel, and I think then next is tarot. There's a few conferences I'd love to get into. I just kind of plan out my year to see what I can make. But I've got to have some time to settle down and write and paint, because there will be 78 original paintings. So
that's great. And that is so exciting. So exciting. So, yeah, we can't wait to see, more from you. Absolutely. And we're going to have all of Gina's links up on the tarottalk.com website. Links to the book, links to the podcast, Oracle Soup, all of that good stuff. Gina, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for your amazing insights and your wisdom. So thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Tim, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This has been such an honor, and I'll be happy to do it again. I really love talking to you guys. It's been a blast. Okay, really a good time.
Very fun. And Tim, how can the listener or the viewers get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook at Timothy's Tarot, or if you're in the Dover, Delaware area, I do readings out of Bell Book and Candle. It's 678-4545.
And I'm your host, Rebecca Brown. Check out my blog, 365daysoftarot.com. This is the Tarot Talk Show on Monday nights, only on the Parrot Encounters Network. You can always email the show, the Tarot Talk Show at gmail.com, and like us on our Facebook page, the Tarot Talk Show. That's all we've got for tonight. Be sure to check out the show website, thetarottalkshow.com, to access all of our archived episodes. So we'll see you next Monday night. Our word of the night was relationships, so check it out. Everybody's former crushes are looking pretty cute by now. So join us next Monday night. So mo to be.